The prisoners' strike for Palestine has ended, the hunger strike, after the prisoners' demands were met. Um, okay, all that needs some unpacking. It is not true, many of those statements and many bits of those statements. First of all, the term hunger strike, I've always found problematic because what kind of a strike is it? You're basically starving yourself. But in this case, although also the word hunger in hunger strike is problematic because it's with a rolling hunger strike, which kind of ensures that nobody is ever at any real risk, which is, generally a good thing in life, not to put yourself in at the risk of death, but is very contrary to the claims being made by the people doing a hunger strike. Now, these are anti-Israel, or as they call themselves, pro-Palestine activists. So we've been accustomed to them lying about everything under the sun. But in the case of these people, some of it is really next level. Let's start with the end of their demands being met. So let me quickly read the demands of the prisoners, who again went on a hunger strike because they wanted these demands met. And if these demands are met, the strike ends. One, end all censorship of their communications within prison. Two, immediate bail for those on remand for Palestine-related protests. Three, right to a fair trial, including publication of relevant documents around Elbit systems in British and Israeli state communications. Four, deep prescription of Palestine action and dropping of the terrorism connection attached to activists' case by the Crown Prosecution Service. And five, shutdown of all UK sites of Elbit systems and subsidiaries and no contract between Elbit and the British state. The demand that has been met is the UK government was awarding a training and simulation contract. Elbit bid for it, and they did not win the bid. That is the extent to which the demands were met. And I believe we have a video of how exactly this went down, the negotiation, and the great victory for the Palestine Action hunger strikers.
If they give you something small, will you end the strike?
Will they act like they're giving Canada a lot so everyone thinks I did a good job?
Can you act like you're giving him a lot?
Sure, why not?
We have won!
So how much did we get?
Well, we didn't get everything that we wanted, but we negotiated hard and we got these coupons to Bennigan's and free bubblegum for every Canadian!
Yeah, I believe that is accurate footage. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Razi Ginsburg, joined by Daniel Kraus. Daniel, behind the scenes, we don't like to reveal all the details, but what we were talking about is when are we going to talk about the strike? And the agreement was when one of them dies. Now, we knew that wasn't going to happen, but still, there was so much about this story. Okay, I've talked enough, so I'll say a bit more later, but there's just so much about this story that pissed me off. But the main thing that pissed me off is that it was a story.
Yeah, so just maybe for more context, Elbit Systems is a is an Israeli company operating in the UK, so that's why they are targeting that one. And I think I believe it's these people that are these supposedly hunger strikers. The reason why they are in prison is because they went with sledgehammers into Elbit facility, if I remember correctly. So that's the connection there. Palestine Action is claiming that they've achieved this. Like, this is their thing, that they took away contract from Elbit, which as far from what I've seen, it's simply they didn't get the bid. There doesn't seem to be any reason or expectation why it would specifically be Elbit, among the fact that it's trying to get it like any company would. Instead, I believe Raytheon Technologies got it, which is a UK subsidiary of the RTX in America. Raytheon, also a military company. So it doesn't like there is nothing. There is no connection there. I mean, maybe there's something behind the scenes, some decision, but from everything we know publicly, there doesn't seem to be any action that has been taken. So yeah, I think it's hilarious the fact that they are trying to claim it, and I think it's exactly what the South Park episode said. It's they just didn't want to do it. They see this is pointless. We'll just act. And even the hunger strike itself, right? It wasn't a hunger strike. When I'm talking about hunger strike, it usually involves, not putting food into your mouth and, swallowing it. With many of these, this is absolutely couldn't even be described as hunger strike, especially if you go into numbers for how supposedly long they have been striking. And as we've said, like not dying. I think I think the one who has been doing it the longest is supposedly on the 73rd day, with I think the upper limit that I've seen, at least from quick search, is like 90 days. The person who was able to like go the longest, and then they died. And usually people start dying around 40 days on strike, which many of these kids have supposedly, I shouldn't call them, which many of these terrorists, I mean, that's what they are in prison for. Many of these terrorists have supposedly been on a hunger strike for. And we can go a little bit more into specifics about each of them in a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Gail, for the super chat. Yeah, you mentioned how ridiculous this is, and it would be ridiculous again, as would a lot of what we talk about on this channel, anything that comes out of the mouth of Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Owen Jones. But the problem is they have an audience, and that audience listens and receives the information and spreads it further on. So for the last few months, almost every day you would see news stories about these people, with the last month or two being devoted to this person's about to die. This person said in a statement that they're unable to form sentences. That was an actual thing, by the way. This was a few weeks ago, and it was promoted. Novara Media, a very left-wing, officially they call themselves communists, website in the UK, was pushing these hunger strikes all along, and they were part of this pretense. By the way, something else they were kind of part of the pretense of, but admitting, is that this was a rolling hunger strike. Now, here is what Google gives you when you search for what is a rolling hunger strike. A rolling hunger strike, or relay hunger strike, I love that, is a form of protest where participants take turns refusing food rather than all stopping at once to sustain pressure over a longer period while managing the extreme health risks for individuals. In other words, this is bullshit. This is something that people tell you, we are bullshitting you, but say what we're saying and pretend that it is the truth. So yes, none of these strikers was ever at risk. All of them, again, remember who we're talking about. We're talking about terrorists who are in prison for being terrorists, who are deciding to refuse food, and who used their refusal to accept food as proof that the government is evil and needs to sit down and negotiate with them. This is what they were saying. This is what the media, the left-wing media in this country, has been saying for the last few months. This is what left-wing politicians, sitting members of the British Parliament, of the House of Commons, were pushing for. We're pushing for government to speak to these people because they were refusing food in the prison they were being held in for being terrorists.
So Deborah in the chat says a rolling hunger strike is just not eating together. What a farce. Well, to be fair, these terrorists are probably also communists, and not doing anything communally is probably hurts them a lot. So, I definitely feel their pain. So we should call it what this is. This is intermittent fasting strike. That's what it was. Like, I do it. I do it quite often. So, like, that's what it is, and trying to act. I'll go a little bit into it, but somebody brought up sort of like the idea of hunger strike, and maybe I could just say if like it is like ever a good idea. So first and foremost, I think it really depends on what is the goal. And first of all, these are terrorists. Like even if their supposed goal was just, which it isn't, the government shouldn't still ban. The fact that these people are in prison for a justified reason. They invaded a facility. They violated private property. They used sledgehammers against police officers. They should absolutely be in prison. And if they want to go on a hunger strike, absolutely nothing should be given from the government itself. Government itself shouldn't ban in any way. Now, if this was like a justified what is like an example, let's say it's like a free speech thing, somebody was arrested for what should essentially be free speech. I think again, government generally should follow law and shouldn't bend the law because somebody is doing something different. So generally when it comes to hunger strikes, the pressure oftentimes is not necessarily on the government but on other people to pressure the government, and I'm glad to see that other people don't care. Nobody really cares about what these terrorists are doing, which is great to see. And I think this is why it has been failing. They try to coalesce against, what was it, like Prisoners for Palestine or something like that, which is representing the strikers. Thankfully, they don't have any outreach, as much as Palestine Action doesn't seem to have much outreach. So again, I think generally this was a win for us, if there is such a thing, in that government finally didn't completely bend over themselves to accommodate a bunch of terrorists. And generally, I think on Palestine Action, the UK government has been pretty good. I mean, going as far as proscribing it as terrorist organization, I think was a great move. That's what they are. So that was great. And sort of like going with that, right? Actually arresting those people, actually putting these people in prison, which again, even when it comes to their demands, it's ridiculous. Like right to a fair trial as one of their demands, as if they're not gonna get a fair trial. Like, of course you're gonna get a fair trial. That's what you're now. Well, I guess we should say, because I don't think these were convicted yet, so I think they're most likely in jail because they're also demanding immediate bail. Which I assume if you get arrested for being part of a terrorist organization, you probably are not going to get bail, and you shouldn't get. I think generally the reasoning for the bail is to give somebody a not have to spend time in jail between the trial and them being arrested, but bail should only be granted, I think, generally when those people, one, wouldn't flee, and two, wouldn't be threat to public, which I think these people absolutely would be. I think they would try to do more stuff if they were let out of jail. So I think generally they should stay there, at least from what I've seen from them. Maybe I can just mention about like the specific people. So we are talking about, I won't mention their names, I'll just mention their ages. So the 31-year-old that has been there the longest is supposedly on the 73rd day of refusing food, which I mean, sounds insane. I think the Guardian article even had that this is the same number of days reached by Irish Republican Kieran Doherty, who uh, who survived the longest, but of the 10 men who died during the hunger strike in 1981 by the Irish. And the earliest death among these same Irish Republicans started at 46 days. Now, we also have a woman, 28-year-old, who is on day 66. And we have a 22-year-old who has a type 1 diabetes and has been fasting every other day and has been on day 46, which again, I've had days where I didn't eat food for the whole day. Now, I would still say it's generally probably not healthy, especially if you have a diabetes. So it's not like they're not like risking something. But I have no sympathy really. I mean, you're a terrorist who is in jail for terrorism. I have no sympathy in whatever illness you have. Especially since you are not even apologetic for your crime. You are actually trying to pursue it further, right? Because they want to get released to do more crime.
This is the amazing thing here. I mean, we are looking at people who are terrorists. I mean, they don't call themselves terrorists, but they're not denying being who they are. They just claim, it's somehow, putting a sledgehammer through the head or whatever it was of a police officer is not terrorism. It's somehow freedom fighting. But we know what they are and what they did. But the narrative of, again, a huge chunk of the media in this country is that these people are victims of hunger that they are choosing. That was the incredible thing here, and it really shows the inverted morality. By the way, the inverted morality and its consequences when dealing with facts. So let's go back to other people who we were told are imminently at risk of starving to death, which is the entire population of Gaza. And we've heard that a bunch of times over the past 2 years. We've done many episodes on this. You can go through the details.
And
And
maybe
of
they
course,
also did rolling starvation.
yeah, yeah, that's well, not even. It wasn't even a rolling hunger strike because they had more food than they needed, and to the extent that there was any food being deprived of anybody in Gaza, it was being deprived by Hamas. And this was a thing that was out there fully and known, that Israel is providing unlimited humanitarian aid to the Palestinians, and some of it gets through and some of it gets stopped by Hamas so that the world will say Israel is starving the Palestinians. And this was immediately repeated again with no questions asked of why are we repeating the lies of the people who started this war by murdering innocent civilians while wearing GoPro cameras so the world can see who they really are. And the world did see who they are and are now widely supporting them. So, these narratives kind of have a tendency to self-generate, to the extent that they are, and they're not, they're not self-generating. The people generating them are, fully responsible morally for what they're doing. But they perpetuate it when they see that it has kind of landed a little bit, and then it nothing else matters, because the one thing that was never talked about outside of this channel and a few other similar ones during the so-called famine in Gaza, which of course nobody is now claiming happened, but people were claiming is happening while they knew it wasn't. What isn't being questioned is the values of whoever is suggesting that Israel is on the hook for feeding the Palestinian population because that population committed the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, and as a result, the Jews are now responsible for feeding them, which was completely absurd. Israel's worst crime over the past 2 years is providing humanitarian aid to the Palestinians. That is Israel's true crime. It is not spoken about in the world as a crime. It is actually denied while, people see it with their own eyes. But yeah, we got to where we got with the prisoners for Palestine strike, the way it's reported and the way it's accepted as, okay, this is the narrative. Now let's see what we're for and what we're against. By this didn't start on October 7th, but it got really amplified on October 7th, where the full-on lies, the 500 people died in an Israeli airstrike on Al Ali Hospital level of lies, are news, because the people who decide what goes into the news want you to come out with a certain opinion of this, which if you're a decent person and informed of the facts, you will 100 with 100% certainty not end up at coming to their conclusions. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Jonathan says, good to see you both. Good to see you too, Jonathan, although I can't really see you, but I see a picture and hopefully see you on a show soon. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, both when it comes to Palestinians and sort of either the likes or the sort of hiding behind, we're just reporting, just like, Guardian is just saying that, these people are saying this is a hunger strike. But it's the same kind of thing. Like, it's not what it is. Like, the more I'm like getting into news and a lot of things that are covered, the more I'm thinking, hey, these things just shouldn't be covered. Like, what is the purpose of news, or what is the purpose of journalism? And when it comes to covering something like this, is anybody like, this is a bunch of terrorists going on a supposedly going on a hunger strike, right? It's not even happening, and and nothing is resulting from that. The government is not reacting really. Nothing is getting resulted. Like, why is this really even coverage? Because I remember, I'm trying to remember what it was exactly. I think it was, was there like a Canadian woman who joined some group to go into West Bank to record something, and I'm not sure if she was killed, or what exactly happened, or kidnapped, or something. I don't know if you remember that story. Well,
When was
it's
this?
actually what?
When was this?
But maybe just a few weeks ago or like a month ago. But maybe it's even good that you don't remember, because I remember a bunch of like right-wing Jewish media didn't even cover this because it wasn't a story. It was some crazy woman went into West Bank to basically help terrorists there, to give them justification, basically to harass Jewish people, right? So I think even when something like that happens, it's, yeah, why is there a coverage? Why does everything like deserve coverage when the only purpose of the coverage is to give some legitimacy to the fact that these people are doing so. These people are criminals. They should, they of course deserve a fair trial, which they will get. The idea is crazy that they wouldn't get it. This is a valid law. I think it's a valid proscription as a terrorist organization. They'll be charged according to that. And if they are considered guilty, well, I don't want to jump ahead, but at least from the videos we've seen and from what they actually did, I think that's pretty clear. So yeah, they should go and end up in prison for however long the what is that, the crown prosecution thinks it's proper to do so, and that is the end of story. So in a way, I'm glad we didn't cover this. And yeah, even if somebody died, it's, well, yeah, that's what happens when you supposedly stop eating and you commit a crime before.
Yeah. Akira says Rolling Starvation sounds like a band name. I like it. Let's start that band. You could do a whole Live Aid and stuff like that. 937Q says that news organizations like Al Jazeera even exist is why this could happen. So, look, totalitarian regimes will have propaganda arms. The problem with Al Jazeera is that post 9/11, the Qatari government decided that this was a good way to get the terrorist perspective, into the West, in not the actual terms that terrorists and their supporters use it when they speak Arabic to each other, but in terms that will kind of make Westerners at the very least feel guilty for existing as they do. Um, the problem is we in the West pretended like that's a legitimate thing. Like, again, everything that Al Jazeera says, if some private scumbag in the West wanted to set up a news channel like that, that's their business, and they can get, customers from anybody who wants that kind of stuff. But we are letting an evil dictatorship, participate in the conversation in the West. And yeah, look, the reason the reason left-wing organizations like The Guardian and MSNBC and what have you, and even the right-wing organizations as they are exist, is because of the problems of fundamentally the prevalent philosophy and prevalent ideas in the West. That's why we allowed Al Jazeera in, but that's also why we have enough of homegrown Al Jazeeras to make sure that those ideas are prominent. And again, we do not have a mainstream alternative to that. We have this channel with our 36 live concurrent viewers right now. By the way, if you like it and comment, That means maybe more people will see this, but we're not going to be competing with mainstream media because the mainstream media of the left and of the right really fits in with the values of the culture, unfortunately, more than reason does. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Daniel.
Yeah, and I've generally been like a defender of mainstream media. I guess at least in the basic sense of getting the facts out, because I always say, I'm not on the ground anywhere to actually cover anything so we can talk about it. That's what they are doing. Unfortunately, when it comes to interpreting those events, when it comes to interpreting news, mainstream media, I think has been pretty bad. When it comes to any sort of like opinion pieces, when it comes to any sort of like actual coverage, or to some extent even sort of like the editorial policy of what we cover, what we publish, what we report, right? I think has been somewhat problematic, like publishing the Hamas numbers when it comes to the deaths in Gaza, just because that's the one number we have, and I'm not making this up. This is straight up from BBC. What's his name? Jeremy Bowen, who straight up said, "Well, this is what we have, so this is what we have to publish." So, yeah. So in that way, I think definitely go to mainstream media for learning on what is actually happening, but then come to us to help you a little bit with interpreting of what is actually happening, or sort of the proper way to understand and contextualize the news with proper philosophy and some long range view of the world and of what needs to be done.
Yeah, well, speaking of which, by the way, one of the topics we were thinking of doing today and we didn't, and we're gonna do it tomorrow, and we were kind of thinking, is it wrong to not do it today? Is the terrifying and incredibly sad way in which the West, specifically Trump, promised his support to the protesters in Iran, then threw them under the bus, and is now speaking in favor of the regime that just murdered, according to some reports, over 10,000 protesters, and according to other reports, it's in the thousands. In any case, this is an incredible instance of mass murder of a regime murdering its own people, and the president of the United States promising like making a full-on commitment to help if something happens. It happened thousands of times, and then he changed his mind and supported the regime. It's just, I think, an unbelievable moment in history that Rand's words from was it 1980 echo, and I think this is worse in a sense. But we didn't talk about it today, so we will talk about it tomorrow. We're still living as if the world is not going to hell in a handbasket, so we are also going to be recording an episode for the Cultural Review, Seinfeld versus Friends. That is coming up hopefully this Wednesday. I say hopefully because we're just about to record it, so once I know it's there, it's real. But yeah, check out our new channel, The Cultural Review, if you haven't. Two videos are there only so far because we just launched this channel. Our review of Pluribus and our review done by Marco and Richard of Heated Rivalry. Both of those are there. Go watch them. And parting thoughts, Daniel?
I said my parting thoughts, so check out my channel, Them Dan. I published or I did a couple live streams, and I might do more. So
Nice. And we will be back with a live stream of the Daily Objective tomorrow. We'll see you then.